To date, we've been in business 11 years at High Alpha, and we have started over 45 net new companies that would not have existed had we not catalyzed it inside of the venture fund. There's approximately 5 million new businesses started in America every year. 9 out of the 10 investments we make will not generate 100x return. Most of them will generate a 0. My job is to just be able to identify who is capable of going all the way.
Right.
And the 2018 Investor of the Year is High Alpha.
If it's your company and you start it and you have a vision, I'm not telling you to compromise on that vision, but I am telling you to give up control.
Right.
I am telling you to share. I am telling you to believe that 1 + 1 = 3. The best founders at building venture scale businesses tend to have experienced some form of childhood trauma.
Who can tell the best story, right?
Storytelling is a foundational skill for a founder to either possess or develop. Hard stop.
Today, we announced this year's Trailblazer Award winner, Kristian Andersen.
No MBA, no stint on Wall Street. I didn't spend 3 years at McKinsey. I kind of got a backdoor MBA by running a design firm that incidentally worked.
Kristian Andersen.
Kristian Andersen.
Kristian Andersen.
Made in New York, assembled in Arkansas, deployed in Indy, married to Brandy, dad to 6 kids, starter, designer, investor, outdoorsman, raconteur.
Yeah.
Welcome to MaalBridge, Kristian. MaalBridge is, like I said, is a platform where we're trying to create a community of investors, founders, and other key stakeholders in the startup world. We are based in Twin Cities, but hope to go expand beyond that over time. Before I let you introduce yourself and tell a little bit more about yourself to our audience, I will try to do a brief intro of yourself.
Let's go.
So Kristian Andersen is a co-founder and a partner at High Alpha, a venture firm that launches, invests, and scales enterprise technology companies. Prior to High Alpha, he founded Studio Science, a leading design and innovation consultant that he sold to private equity in 2019. Kristian is an active angel investor and previously co-founded Gravity Ventures, a seed-stage venture fund, and a number of software companies. He is actively involved in a number of philanthropic and nonprofit endeavors. And I got that from your website, but I was trying to see if there is a briefer, more interesting way to say. And the intro that is a little bit shorter than that and actually told me a little bit more than what that did for me was your bio in your Instagram, which said, made in New York, assembled in Arkansas, deployed in Indy, married to Brandy, dad to 6 kids, starter, designer, investor, outdoorsman, raconteur.
Yeah.
I really, really like that.
Thank you. I should just go with that one from now on.
I think I like that. It was beautiful. So Kristian, please tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are.
Yeah, well, you hit a lot of it. You hit a lot of it, Mohammed. I'm, as you noted, I was born in New York, but I was in fact raised in a relatively rural context in Arkansas and came to Indiana for college and effectively never left. I fell in love with the city of Indianapolis. And, at one point somebody asked me, why do you love Indianapolis so much? And I just kind of came to me, I said, because Indianapolis loved me first. And this has just been such an amazing, I didn't know anyone. I don't have any family here. I didn't go to a prestigious university. And yet, this city, and I think the Midwest in general, quite frankly, is a place that cares less about pedigree and more about what you're capable of. And I felt this city gave me a chance as a business person when I didn't necessarily deserve that. And so my wife and I have decided to, make our lives here. I've been married for 24 years. As you noted, I have 6 children, 5 daughters and 1 son. My background, oddly enough, is design.
Right.
So unlike the kind of prototypical path to venture capital, no MBA, no stint on Wall Street. I didn't spend 3 years at McKinsey. I kind of got a backdoor MBA by running a design firm that incidentally worked almost exclusively with venture-backed technology companies. And so it was through the 15 plus years I spent as a consultant that I really was able to form my idea of what the next chapter of my life could and should look like, which was both entrepreneurship and investing.
That's amazing. That's really good. One very fresh perspective that I heard you say a couple of times was your perspective on purpose. In corporate world and consulting, which is sort of where I'm from, goal and purpose are treated the same thing.
Yeah.
I really like your take of how vision, mission, and goals are different from purpose. Specifically, you said you get to choose them.
Yeah.
But purpose, you have to acknowledge, is already within you.
Yeah, that's right.
Can you unpack that a little bit for us?
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
And I'm a big fan of missions, and I'm a big fan of goals and vision and a lot of that other corporate gobbly speak. But I do, as you noted, I do feel like purpose is distinct. I have kind of a faith orientation that guides how I think about this, but I actually think it's just, whether you believe in God or not, I think it's applicable nonetheless.
Okay.
What makes purpose distinct from a mission, as you noted, is what's your mission in life? Well, I'm really interested in X or Y or Z, and so I'm going to go pursue that. And I do think mission is inextricably linked with purpose, but what I think makes it distinct is that your purpose is imparted by something other than you. And the analogy I use is a hammer. A hammer was designed by somebody.
Right.
And it was designed with a very specific utility. Now, you can use a hammer for a lot of different things.
Right.
As you've maybe heard me say, you can flatten a turkey breast and make turkey schnitzel with a hammer. You can kill somebody
with
a hammer.
Yes.
But it wasn't designed for those things. It was designed to hammer nails. And I think what's unique about purpose is that and the reason I like it so much is it relieves the burden of having to figure out, what am I supposed to do with my life? What am I called to? And, my encouragement specifically to young people is to just follow their interests, pay attention to what they're drawn to, pay attention to what when other people speak like affirming words into you, you're so good at X or you're so good at Y, like that, you should listen to that, right? Because sometimes it's easier for other people to see your gifting than it is for you to see.
You're not willing to acknowledge, or you don't even aware that it's there.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Exactly. And that's why your role and what you're doing, the work you and your team are doing, I think is so important. Because specifically, entrepreneurs, young people that are like trying to figure out, why am I here? How do I do this? What should I be doing? Your ability to see things in them that they don't see in themselves can help really, I think, highlight and bubble up people's purpose. And the beautiful thing about purpose is it's not a vocation. It's not your job. It's not a title. For me personally, I think of my purpose as to be able to see and help realize potential. And I can do that in my garden. I can do that in the way I raise my children. I can do that in the way that I work with startup founders. Like, I can apply it.
It's not limited to one specific task or job.
No, if I worked at Lowe's, my purpose would be the same. If I worked at a big pharmaceutical company, my purpose would be the same.
Right.
And I think that's one thing, is people will conflate purpose and calling with a vocation or a job title. And I think that's not a smart way to think about it.
I like that you said this is something already within you, that you don't actually hopefully don't have to work so hard to find it. But yet, that is not the case for a lot of people. A lot of people spend their whole entire lives figuring out who they are and what they're supposed to do and what is their purpose in life.
Yeah.
Are there any strategies or tips that you would suggest people to employ to figure that out, hopefully early in their stage? And specifically for you, how long did it take you to be crystal clear on what your purpose is?
Well, it probably took me a very, very long time to be able to articulate it clearly. But if I look back over the past decades, I mean, I'm an old man, Mohammed. I'm 52 years old. So if I look back over the decades, even when I was a child, and I reflect back on what I was drawn to and how I spent my time, it was always there. And I would argue, even for the folks that you reference that have no idea what their purpose is, they may not consciously understand it, but it doesn't mean that the purpose isn't already planted inside of them. So you asked for maybe practical strategies to uncover that. I mean, I already mentioned the first one is, and this is hard to do, specifically when you're young, but is to pay attention.
Pay attention.
You know?
This day and age, paying attention is very, very hard.
Pay attention to what's going on in your heart. Pay attention to what other people speak into you. Pay attention to what really brings you joy. Not what you think is supposed to bring you joy. So that's one thing, just paying attention. I think the other one is, you know, this is oftentimes used when people talk about luck, but the more surface area you can expose yourself to early on in life, but also later in life, the more surface area exists for your purpose to materialize. So my personal, like one of my philosophies in life, and it's not very fashionable. People, I think a lot of people think this is bad advice, but I think it's good advice. Which is for your default setting to be yes, not no.
Not no.
So specifically amongst like high performers, the advice they'll give you is say no to everything except for what you're focused on, your goal. Right. And if somebody asks you for your time or for coffee or to do a podcast, if that's not in service of your goal, say no. And I think it's terrible advice. When I reflect on my own life, basically every good thing that's ever happened to me has been a function of me saying yes to somebody, to giving, not taking. And, you know, if you're somebody that's at a point in your life where you feel adrift or you feel like you don't have purpose, I think one of the most important things you can do is to increase the surface area of your life. So take the class at community college, volunteer, even if you have a full-time job, get an internship on the weekend. Like it is putting yourself in position for your purpose to become manifest. Or if you don't want to say purpose, we can say luck, right? But you want to increase the surface area of your life. And a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people live small lives and either don't feel like they have the permission to live a bigger life, or they're afraid of that. And I think that's a critical piece of it.
It's very interesting because lately, actually, I've been trying to say no more often. Right? And mainly it's because I have a busy life. I have a family, I have a job, I have, you know, side stuff that I'm trying to work on. And by saying yes to more things, I feel like I would be spreading myself too thin and would probably disappoint some people and not perform my best at any of those places. And I was like, what is 1, 2, 3 things that I can really focus on, really shine, be really good at it, go deep instead of, you know, wide. And your philosophy makes sense to me because like increasing your service makes sense. But then over time, should you be supposed to narrowing it down and then focus on few, or you think that is, you should stay wide? I
think there are rhythms, and all life is a pattern and a rhythm. And whether we're talking about an EKG or a piece of music, there are seasons. There are high notes and there are low notes. There are long breaks between the beats, and then there's 140 beats per minute, right? And so I'm certainly not suggesting that you say yes to everything all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also not suggesting that you say no all the time. There's a rhythm, and it's different for everyone. Has a different amount of bandwidth, a different sized motor,
Right.
so it won't be the same
Right.
for everyone,
Right.
no question. But I do think as a culture, we're becoming more isolated, more inward focused, more limited in what we expose ourselves to, either because we disagree with it, or we're scared of it, or we're either maybe afraid of being offended or afraid of offending. And so it's just much easier to get into your small world. And I think that's a mistake. So I want to be crystal clear. If you go around saying yes to, if I said yes to every person who knocked on my door and tried to sell me something,
Right.
I would be living on the streets right now. So I have to say no on occasion, but I think most people don't say yes enough. And so my challenge would just be, what are things in your life that you could say yes to
Right.
that would increase the surface area of your life, increase the opportunities for that new relationship, for luck to find you, for your purpose to emerge? Because, Mohammed, frankly, let's just talk about it in the context of relationships, okay?
Yes.
I said every good thing that's ever happened to me has been a function of saying yes, and predominantly the yes that I said was to another person. So it was to the lunch, to the dinner, to the phone call, to going out on a Friday night at the end of a busy week when you're exhausted.
Right.
And every one of those yeses put me in relationship with someone new. I'm in relationship with you because I said yes to something that sounded like a good idea 6 months in advance.
Yes.
And I was kind of dreading the day before.
Right. I'm glad you still made it.
And I still did it.
Yes.
And now I know you.
Yes.
And now I know you too. And relationships compound over time the same way interest in your savings account compounds over time.
Yes.
So the more deposits you put in your bank account and the longer you let it compound, the more money you have when you retire. The same thing is true for relationships. And to be quite frank, Mohammed, the way you get in a relationship with people is by saying yes. And I don't mean when Warren Buffett calls, saying yes.
It's easy to say yes at that
That's
time.
easy to say yes. I'm talking about the yeses that are harder because there's nothing in it for you right then. Or it doesn't feel like there's anything in it for you right then. So yeah, I stand by my life philosophy. Saying yes as your default will get you further in life than saying no.
Wow. I really like that. And I'll adjust my philosophy. I think I want to be a little bit closer to you. I want to say more yes. And I was like that for a long time. It was just life has gotten busy. I don't know.
Well, and there's seasons, and there'll be a season where you need to say no because you need to take care of your wife.
Right.
You need to prioritize your children.
Yes.
You either have a boss or you are a boss, and you've got to take care of the people working for you. Exactly. So there are seasons where you need to go narrow, but just don't get stuck there, man. And keep your eyes open for the seasons where you need to widen your aperture and say yes.
Oh, great. That is very, very well put. You mentioned that you are not from a typical VC background. Now you run a VC. You guys also have a venture studio.
Yeah.
Before we get to, I want to understand how, coming from that background, from design background, not the typical VC background, how did that help you look at founders differently or assess businesses differently? But before we even get to that, I wonder if you could provide a brief explanation of venture studio or venture capital, the relationship between the two, and specifically for High Alpha.
Sure.
Is it usually from the studio and then they kind of grow up at the studio and then they come over to the capital, or is it very distinct and there's no back and forth between?
No, it's really one thing.
Okay.
We think of it as one thing.
Okay.
So the distinction would be kind of traditional venture capital is you go raise money from limited partners and investors, and you go look for businesses, ideally businesses where you have some kind of experiential or knowledge edge, and you invest in these existing businesses to fuel their growth.
Right.
And if things go well, 10 years later, you have a successful exit and you're able to send money back to your investors, which is how you get to keep doing venture capital.
Right.
If you don't send money back to your investors, you don't get to keep this job very long. What we're doing is we've introduced this idea of the venture studio into the venture capital stack, which is instead of going out, waiting until we find a team working on a business or attacking a market that we're interested in, if we see an opportunity in the marketplace that's not being met, we'll just start the company. So we have really 4 thematic areas where this is an area where we're focused.
Nice.
Where we're constantly scanning the market and looking for founders that are building businesses that are solving these problems we're interested in. But occasionally we'll not find that. We'll have a deep felt sense that a business should exist in this market to serve a particular need. We cannot find a team working on it. So we will assemble a team and usually a whole host of partners around this idea. We will fund it, but what we're funding on day one is an idea, nothing else. There's probably no team, there's no capital, there's no customers, there's no product. It's really idea stage venture capital. And we'll tend to do that once or twice a year. It's a big lift to do this. But to date, we've been in business 11 years at High Alpha, and we have started over 45 net new companies that would not have existed had we not catalyzed it inside of the venture fund.
Wow. You guys found the idea, and then you look for the founders.
And on occasion, a founder will come to us. And we'll be so impressed by the founder that we'll say, let's go find something to build together. So sometimes the idea emerges first. And we scan the market for founders that we think would be great to build this business. And sometimes we'll come into a relationship with somebody that's so extraordinary. We say, we're not sure what we're going to build together, but we know we want to build something with you.
I see. Does it happen? Someone brings a totally new idea to you guys. You assess the idea. You were like, not this idea, but you're awesome. We want you to actually run this other business that we came up with.
Yeah, that happens because, listen, most startups, by the time they're big, successful enterprises, they've been 3 or 4 different companies along the way. Rarely was the initial insight the thing that brought them to IPO, but it's what got things started so they could start having the customer conversations. And that's oftentimes that's kind of where the magic happens, because that's where you learn the real opportunity. So oftentimes we'll meet wonderful people working on bad ideas and we'll try to kind of shape that.
That's great. That's really good. You mentioned earlier, so MaalBridge, we try to coach, mentor new founders. Like I say, most of them are from immigrant backgrounds. Most of them don't actually take the traditional VC path. You've just said right before we started the interview, that might be actually a good idea most of the time. And there is a stage or a type of business that is right for VC, and there are types and the stages that are wrong for VC. Could you a little bit say more about that, please?
Well, sure. I mean, there's approximately 5 million new businesses started in America every year. Venture capital invests something like invest in something like 0.001 of those companies.
Very small.
Right?
Yeah.
Someone will have to check my math on that, but it's it's directionally accurate.
Right.
You know?
I hear you. Yes.
And the reason for that is most businesses, including small businesses that become very large businesses, are not appropriate for venture capital. You and I shared we talked about this a little bit off camera, but founders should be extraordinarily wary of raising money from VCs. If you think about how do you fund a business, and there's customer financing, and those are relatively that's easy to do if you want to start a power washing company. Okay?
Right.
Because what do I need to do to start a power washing company? I need a power washer. That's $500. And I need a way to get that power washer from one person's driveway to another person's driveway. Okay. It's not a capital intensive business. And so I can grow that business with receipts I'm getting from my customers. Every time I do a $200 power washing job,
Mhm.
that money goes to me and my business.
Right.
And I can decide what I want to do with it. Do I want to print business cards, get new t-shirts, or, take my girlfriend out to dinner
Nice.
that night? But those types of businesses, for obvious reasons,
Mhm.
should not raise venture capital.
I agree. Yes.
On the other end of the spectrum, you have extraordinarily complex, technical, expensive products
Mhm.
that a customer's not going to pay you for that in the short term
Mhm.
because it's not done yet.
Right.
So you need to raise external financing in order to build the product. So if you want to build a high-end, if you want to build an NVIDIA chip,
Mhm.
you can't, on day one, you can't finance that from your customers. You have to go raise money, build the tooling. It might be 2, 3, 4 years
Mhm.
before you have a product in market. So that's the extreme on the other end of the spectrum. You should raise venture capital. In between the two,
Mhm.
there are a lot of other ways to finance a business. Obviously, you can just go to your friends and family.
Right.
They may not have enough money, but you can
Yes.
start there. There are grants. There are economic development programs that make direct, non-dilutive investments in companies.
Mhm.
There is bank financing of all flavors, all the way down to microfinancing opportunities. And oftentimes founders just think, I got to raise venture capital. And on average, maybe 1%,
Mhm.
probably less,
Mhm.
almost certainly less, of new businesses should consider VC. Because if you do take venture capital, what you are signing up for is to build an enormous business. And what I mean by enormous, and this is kind of rough math,
Mhm.
but like when we make a venture investment, we underwrite it in such a way that we have to believe that this business could generate 100 times the investment that we put into that business. And that's not because we're greedy.
Right.
That's because 9 out of the 10 investments we make
Mhm.
will not generate 100x return. Most of them will generate a 0. So if
Right.
we write a $5 million check, 50% of the time,
Mhm.
we never see that money again. Maybe 20 or 30% of the time,
Yeah.
we get our original investment back 10 years later.
Mhm.
That's not a good investment, by the way, right?
It's slow.
So you have to have
Yeah.
1 or 2 of those really kind of go to the moon, or the business model doesn't work. So when you take money from a VC, you are signing up for building a very, very big business, and you are signing up for what I would argue is a loss of freedom as a business owner.
Because you have to take more input now.
Now you got a bunch of folks sitting around a table
Yes.
telling you what to do. Even if the best thing for the founder
Mhm.
and the best thing for the business might be to do this,
Right.
the investors are like, no, we need to do this because we have to go build an enormous business. And most of the most truly important businesses in America
Right.
are not enormous businesses.
So if a lot of the businesses are failing, do you think maybe it's because then the VCs are forcing, unimaginable scale? But if they actually were okay with the smaller size, you won't have a very high return, but also it won't go to 0. It will be
Yeah,
like somewhere in the middle.
For sure.
Right?
For sure.
But
the
you guys are not
VCs that are quote unquote forcing that
Yes.
aren't bad for forcing that. Like that's their business model.
Right.
And when you said yes to them, there was a explicit quid pro quo that we are going to make decisions based on building a big business.
Right.
And so the minute you take that type of financing,
Mhm.
you have said no to 9 other options of how you could go about growing this
I
business.
see.
I've started other businesses in the past. I've invested in other businesses that were explicitly not designed to become huge, and they are awesome businesses. The founders have become wealthy running these businesses that are not VC backed.
Wow. I'm very sure you see founders all the time. Like you say, majority of them you
That's
probably
the
say,
job.
you'll
Yeah.
probably say no to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want to see if you could share a few things that allows you to know, if this founder really has the potential in the first few minutes you meet them versus, the ones that you're like, this guy got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would say at the end of the day, my job
Mhm.
is to just be able to identify who is capable of going all the way.
Right.
Like that's the job.
Mm-hmm.
So what are the constituent elements
Yeah.
of great founders? I think that's maybe your question.
That's a better question,
Right?
actually. Yes.
So there's the stuff that everyone already knows.
Right.
Are they high IQ?
Mm.
Are they hardworking? Are they good storytellers?
Mm.
You know, do they possess some unique insight that others don't?
Right.
Like, so, and I think everyone, they might use different language, but everyone kind of understands that's
Yeah.
kind of the baseline package. But that alone
Mm-hmm.
is insufficient. Because I know a lot of people who are hard workers, high IQ, have got great ideas
Mm-hmm.
that for whatever reason aren't able to break through.
I see.
So for me personally,
Mm-hmm.
I would layer maybe 2 things on top of that,
Okay.
which I'll share in a moment. But I want to come back to storytelling because that's a very
Yes, that was one of the questions I have too.
overlooked
Yes.
one.
Yeah.
So I'd say the other 2 things are the best founders
Mm-hmm.
at building venture scale businesses
Right.
tend to have experienced some form of childhood trauma.
Most founders,
Yeah. The most successful.
most successful founders. Wow, that's a new information. Never heard that.
Yeah.
before.
Well,
Yes.
we've always talked about it, but we've used less offensive language in the
Okay.
past.
Okay.
In the past, we would say things like, she's got a chip on her shoulder,
Mm.
you know?
Okay. Yes.
But what is a chip on your shoulder? It is,
Something to prove.
you got something to prove.
Yes.
Okay. And normal, well-adjusted people
Mm-hmm.
aren't animated by having to prove everybody wrong.
That's really.
And so I talk about it as trauma. You know, I'm sure there are more polite words I could use,
Mm-hmm.
but if you look at the pantheon of the greats,
Right.
from Cornelius Vanderbilt to J.P. Morgan to Elon Musk to Steve Jobs, there's been some systemic trauma in their life, whether they're fully aware of it or not,
Right.
that has animated them to do something exceptional, and has animated them to be able to push through, in many cases, decades of suffering, rejection. Because again, normal people,
Right.
and I like normal people.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
I want my kids to be normal people,
I
right?
see.
Have a level of contentment
Mm-hmm.
that also is kind of counter to ambition.
Mm.
So number one, it's somebody who I took boxing lessons years ago, and my coach told me I would never be a great boxer
Mm.
because I had not had a hard enough life.
Wow.
Okay,
Okay.
and that stung at the time.
Yes.
And I'm not sure he was right,
Mm-hmm.
but I really understand today what he meant.
I see.
I understand what he meant. So I think that's one thing. You need to have, and this isn't necessarily healthy,
Mm-hmm.
but you really need to be animated in such a way that you have something to prove. Because if you don't have that kind of traumatic experience, that chip on your shoulder,
Mm-hmm.
it's too easy to just say, you know what? This was harder than I thought it was going to be. I'm just going to go get a normal job.
Right.
White picket fence, et cetera, et cetera. So that's number one. Number two, I describe as some form of neurodivergency.
Mm. Yeah, that
Okay.
would make sense. Yeah.
So you need to be slightly not normal.
Right. Comes back to being normal
It
again.
really
Yeah.
does.
Yes.
I mean, great founders are not normal in
Right.
any respect.
Yeah.
They're just not.
Yeah.
So the chip on their shoulder, which again, we might call that, oh, they're really competitive. Rarely would people say, oh, that person's traumatized.
Mm.
But oftentimes that's actually what's animating it, right? And it doesn't have to be a big thing. It could be getting picked on growing up, or mom didn't love you enough, or, but something like that. And then the other one is some type of neurodivergency. It doesn't have to be clinical. It doesn't need to be Asperger's syndrome. It doesn't need to be
operational still.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be dyslexia, although
Okay.
both of those are good.
Yeah.
It
Richard
could.
Braxton, I think, has that. Yeah.
Oh well, jobs,
Right.
Branson,
Mm-hmm.
Einstein. I mean, I can just rip through a long list.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
But some type of neurodivergency, again, doesn't need to be clinical, doesn't need to be like a physiological or psychological thing necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
But it is going to be somebody who has I'm forgetting who said this. It'll come to me in a minute. But a very famous investor said, great founders are great because they have a disagreement with the present.
They're not content with how the world is today.
They disagree with the present.
Right.
Right. And
yes.
And there's a very famous saying, which is, the reasonable man conforms himself to the world. The unreasonable man forces the world to conform to him.
Wow.
Therefore,
it's a big take on.
all progress is a function of the unreasonable man. Okay. So I call that can manifest as neurodivergency. That can manifest as just being a disagreeable person. But a great founder has a profound disagreement with the present.
Wow.
We also talk about founders needing to be optimistic. Okay. Well, I think that's true.
Yeah.
I think that's very true. Optimists are not realists. There was a study conducted many years ago trying to understand the impact of economic development at the nation state level based on the general optimism or pessimism of the population. And they conducted a closed experiment where they took 50 self-described pessimists and 50 self-described optimists, and they gave them a puzzle. And they asked them 3 questions. And the first question was, will you be able to complete this puzzle? Very complex 3-dimensional puzzle. Okay. Far and away, the most accurate group at predicting if they would be able to solve it or not were the pessimists.
The ones who say probably not.
Yeah.
And they still end up actually solving it.
The pessimists were like far and away more accurate in predicting their ability. The next question was, how long will it take you to solve this puzzle? If you think you can solve it, how long will it take? Again, by far and away, the pessimists were much more accurate in predicting how long it would take. The optimists were totally off.
I see.
But the third question, which I guess really wasn't a question, the third, but I'll call it a question. The third question was, were they able to complete the puzzle? So the pessimists were much more accurate in predicting whether they would be able to do it. They were far more accurate in determining how long it would take. But guess who was far more successful in completing the puzzle?
The pessimist?
The optimist.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. That's
so
a twist.
Exactly.
Yes.
In the lesson in that is optimists do a bad job of understanding how long something's going to take,
right?
How expensive it's going to be, how hard it's going to be.
But they get there.
But because they don't understand those things, realistically, they start. They get going.
I like that.
So I do think optimism, like if you're a pessimistic founder, you should just go get another job. Because if you know how the toll it's going to take, how hard it's going to be, how much suffering you're going to have to endure, you just won't even start. That's why I do think optimism and even a delusional level of optimism is very important for founders.
Wow. I thought this whole point you were going to say pessimists are the kind of founders you look for, but that was a big twist at the end.
No.
And I like it.
No, you need an optimist. Now they need to be able to think logically.
Right.
They need to be, when appropriate, they need to be rational for sure. But anything that's capable of putting a big dent in the universe you're going to look foolish. You're going to look foolish when you start. You're going to look foolish 3 years in. Because the realists are going to be like, that'll never work. That market will never materialize. Right. You'll never be able to raise the money. So yeah, it does require an almost supernatural level of belief in yourself.
Wow. I once remember, I don't know if it was a quote by him or he was quoting somebody else, but I went to found an author who was publishing a book, and someone asked him, I thought, aren't you like a pessimist or something like that? I don't remember the exact context, but what he said is like aligns exactly what you say. He said, I am not a pessimist because pessimists don't write books.
That's correct.
Right?
Yep.
They already will make up their mind about the million ways this is not going to work.
That's
and
right.
Then never get started. So that's really powerful. I want to go back to one point that you said about kids who experience some sort of trauma or have a chip on their shoulder. So This is kind of a weird question, but I can't get it out of my head. I have to ask. If we want to raise the next, Steve Jobs,
Yeah.
does that mean we need to start that early and maybe not, expose our kids to hopefully a tolerable level of trauma?
Well, I'm not sure. Personally, I wouldn't want to raise the next Steve Jobs.
Okay.
Steve Jobs built an amazing company and certainly changed the world in many positive ways, also in some many negative ways. But he was fundamentally, I never knew Steve Jobs, but I've read a lot, and he was an unhappy person.
Yes.
He was a discontent person. He was not a person, I think, who lived a life of joy. Again, taking nothing away from him, his inventions and the company he stewarded has changed the world. Again, not always in a positive way.
Right.
I'm not sure, on balance, this has been a net positive to civilization. Okay?
Yeah.
So for me, I don't want to raise Steve Jobs.
Gotcha.
I do want to raise successful, joy-filled, loving, kind, high-impact people. And I do think in order to achieve that, children do need to experience suffering. I don't want them to be traumatized,
right?
But I do want my children to suffer. And my wife and I take opportunities to engineer safely,
right?
Some measure of suffering. That's probably the best way to put it. There is no growth. You want your children to grow?
Yeah.
You want them to grow intellectually,
right?
Spiritually, physically, relationally?
Sure.
Of course, we want growth.
Right.
There is no growth without suffering at all, period. There's no example, ever.
Growth doesn't happen in comfort.
There is no growth coming out of comfort.
Right.
When you go into the gym and you want to bench press 225 pounds, the way that happens is lifting heavy weights creates literally, they call it mechanical damage to your musculature.
Right.
That is the tearing of muscle fiber. And when those muscle fibers tear and it hurts, they grow back stronger. Tear, grow back stronger. Tear, grow back stronger. Wow. So to raise healthy children, and not just healthy children, successful children that can impact the world, that ain't happening without suffering. That is not happening without hardship. And it's a big challenge, especially in a family, in a family where maybe their material needs are being met.
Right.
And you go on great vacations, and you have a nice car, and you have a beautiful home. How do you do that?
Wow. Do you have any specific example of how maybe you engineer one of those? Part of suffering.
I mean, the first one would be my wife and I, and we do this imperfectly, but we have kind of a rule of not doing anything for our children that they are capable of doing for themselves. And that starts when they are crawling. And it is so easy as a parent who loves your child, because it's our instinct to want them to be comfortable. And there are many times where I could drop in and I could fix a problem for them. Maybe a discipline issue at school. Maybe that they forgot their gym clothes for practice, and it would be easy to hop in the car and drive the clothes to them. We just don't do it. Because that's suffering of them getting benched by their coach because they forgot their uniform. Which, listen, I wanted to go to the wrestling meet. I want to watch him compete. And it would be easy for me to hop in the car and drive 20 minutes and drop his uniform off. I'm talking about my son here.
Right.
But the way he learns is through that incremental suffering. The way he grows, having to deal with the consequences of him forgetting. I think that as just a guiding principle of do nothing for your children that they are capable of doing for themselves, and being, I think, smart about not rescuing your children. Now, obviously, if my child was hanging on the edge of a cliff because he had done something foolish, I'm going to pull him off the edge of the cliff. So you reach certain levels of danger where you have to interject. But most parents in America today are jumping in to save their kids.
We jump in too often,
with
too early.
far too much frequency.
I see.
And as a result, we're robbing them of that suffering. And if you rob somebody of suffering, you rob them of growth.
So you talk a lot about Indy.
Yep.
You love Indy so much that you named your son.
My only son, Indy.
I
Yeah.
love the son.
And if we'd been born in Minneapolis, we would have named him Minnie, I guess. I don't
know. I share that love for Indy because Indy also welcomed me about 15 years ago from a refugee camp in Kenya. I landed here. I didn't know where Indiana was or what Indy was. But the people of Indy and Indianapolis have been the greatest. You also talked about how you can build something in Indiana without having a pedigree or without having connections.
Yeah.
A lot of the immigrants that we work with at MaalBridge can very much relate to that because they are a lot of them, first in their family to go to college, first in their family to have a professional job, first in their family to start a business. They don't have a network or an uncle or a friend or somebody to, connect with and to help them, make the journey easier. Sometimes suffering, going back a little bit to suffering, I think small dose of suffering is good, but sometimes it can be also overwhelming and, kind of destable in a way, right? So, but also I liked your story of you come from Arkansas to Indiana, you went to Andersen, didn't know that many people. I didn't know people at all, right?
Yeah, I didn't know anybody.
And you started your first company at 2-in-1, right?
Yeah.
With not a lot of resources, with no connections, with none of that, right? So what would you recommend for someone who is sort of in that position, who does not have the wealth and the network and the connection it takes to actually build something great? How can they get something started?
Well, I think I guess the short answer is, I don't know. I can tell you how I did it.
Right.
You know what I mean? I can tell you how I did it.
Right.
I graduated from college and, there's, I think it's probably good to be like totally transparent in that, I didn't start, the camera can't see this, but I didn't start from here.
Right.
I started here.
Yeah.
I had a college education.
Cool. Yeah.
I had a pickup truck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I had an apartment, a place to live.
Nice.
So, it's good to just acknowledge the reality of that. I never used it, but I had a loving family, parents that were married and still alive. And, I kind of knew in the back of my mind, if I am hanging off the edge of the cliff, about to drop, there's something down beneath me that might catch me, right? So it's not lost on me that I was able to take even more risk than, take the immigrant population you referenced that there may be no safety net.
Right.
Like zero.
A lot of them, yeah.
And if you slip and fall, that may be it. Now, the reality is, unless you actually die, it's never it.
You can get up.
It ain't over.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But for me, I took a job right out of college, and I was employed for 6 months at this job. I made very little money, which is fine. I had low expectations at that point in my life, but almost 6 months to the day, my boss called me into his office and fired me.
Wow.
And through I think no fault of my own, the company wasn't working.
Okay. Downsizing.
And he was shutting it down.
Okay.
But I no longer had a job. And I was devastated, of course. I was a young man. I had a rent payment I had to make and was living, pretty hand to mouth. So I went and found another job. I applied for another job. I was accepted. I went back to my former boss and I told him this, and he said, "Kristian, don't take that job."
The one who just fired you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He said, "Don't take that job." He said, "You're talented. If you go take this job, you're going to be stuck in a job like that for the rest of your life. You'll get addicted to a paycheck, and you're going to be helping somebody else fulfill their dreams, not fulfilling your own." I was young. I was impressionable.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Really? Okay." I didn't get severance from being fired, but he did give me a computer. So now I have a computer.
Right.
I have a computer and a rent payment. And I hung up my own shingle like 6 months. So in my entire 30 plus year career, I've only gotten a paycheck for 6 months.
Wow.
You know,
Okay.
every other dollar I've ever made, I made it, being the boss, for lack of a better word.
Yes.
And that was true before college. I can go back and tell you stories of when I started making money for myself in elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
So I had never had a boss except for that 6 months.
Okay.
And I did learn, by the way, in that 6 months that I probably don't like having a boss. So I hung up my own shingle. I was one guy, and I just started knocking on doors. And I was a designer, but I would basically do anything. My dad gave me some advice. He says, when a potential customer says, "Can you?" say yes.
Then what? Figure it out.
Yeah, and figure it out. So I'm a designer,
Yes.
and this is kind of in the middle of the beginning of the first wave of the internet boom. Nobody really knows what they're doing, but I knew more than the average person. So I'm designing websites. This is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to design websites for people. It's just me. I'm just a freelancer.
I see.
And, the next prospect goes, "Well, you design websites. Well, that's like email, isn't it?" Like, no.
No. Very
It's like,
different. Yeah.
"Could you manage our email systems?" I was like, "Of course. Of course I can." I knew nothing about configuring server-based SMTP email systems. And I just bought a book, Email for Dummies. I went and bought a little rack email server. It lived, if he had known where his email was being administered from, they would have fired me. A few months later, somebody asked me if I print brochures, which I had never done. I was like, yes, of course I print brochures, and for the first couple of weeks, I used a Kinko's, and then I ended up buying a little color printer, and am literally, like, I have no business doing any of this.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm running now a little print shop, and it's just me. You know what I mean?
It's going back to your answer of saying yes more often.
I just said yes.
Yeah.
Yes. You get to a point, actually, this kind of interesting insight I had years ago. In the beginning of your business, you want to say yes to everything. And the bigger you get, the more you want to say no.
I see.
And that's what I did in
you
my.
can afford no at that point. Yeah.
Well, and the more focused you get in your discipline,
right.
the more of a premium you can command for that.
Right.
So by the time I sold that same company 15 years later, I was not printing brochures or managing people's emails, right? We were doing something very specific, very bespoke for a very particular type of client. So I guess my advice would go back to saying yes. Nothing was beneath me.
I see.
Well, that's not what I want to do. That's not the type because that got me into more relationships, more surface area. And then over time, by serving those customers excellently, I was able to narrow in a little more finely around my, kind of what for lack of a better word, both what I wanted to do and what I was good at. And you'll find it's interesting. Once you find out what you're good at, it also tends to be the thing you enjoy doing,
Yeah.
And I think that's really important too.
At one point do you realize then this is more than one man's job and make your first hire?
Yeah, I was basically a glorified freelancer for a few years.
Okay.
Making a good living, single guy, I've got a nice condo,
Right.
blah, blah, blah. But I don't have any savings or anything like that. But, living free. I fell in love. I got married, and my dad sat me down. My dad, who's been probably my greatest business mentor,
Wow.
and said something like, "You need to get serious. You need to get serious." Now, that either means figuring out how to operationalize this business or go get a real job, And I knew I didn't want to go get a real job. And I made my first hire. I had no money.
Okay.
And I hired this guy. His name was Nathan Sensabaugh. I hired him for $30,000 a year. And I thought, which was more than I was making. That's probably not true. But it seemed like such an unrealistic thing to bring somebody in who was also married and have them be dependent on and contingent upon my ability to provide for him and his family. And I just did it. I said yes.
Wow.
I asked him, I said, well, what would it take to get you to come work for me? He was like $30,000.
Let's make that money together.
And I did it. And you know what? Things started ripping like that. When it became something bigger than me,
right,
is when the handcuffs came off, and that business grew. At the time I sold it, there was probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 dozen full-time folks generating many, many millions of dollars a year in revenue. And the single greatest inflection point was when I said, I can't do this alone, and took a risk. And it wasn't, it was a real risk. And that, like, starting the business wasn't a risk at all.
Right.
To me, a bigger risk would have been going to work for somebody. Like, that didn't feel like a risk to me. That felt like just the right decision. But hiring somebody was a big risk. And that, without a way to pay them. And that's when the magic started happening. And some version of that story has followed me in every stage of my career, where I stepped into something that, on paper, I shouldn't have stepped into, but I've always had a belief. There's a word called pronoia. And
not paranoia?
No.
Pronoia.
Pronoia.
Okay.
Pronoia is the antonym to paranoia.
Oh, okay.
Pronoia means basically that the universe is secretly conspiring in your favor. Okay?
Yeah.
And I've always felt that the universe is secretly conspiring in my favor.
Wow.
I've always believed not just that things are going to work out, but the future is going to be even brighter than today. There's a quarterback that you guys probably know, Aaron Rodgers,
I heard
NFL quarterback. He was with Green Bay. Yeah. He's kind of a weird dude. But I watched a documentary about him a couple of years ago, and in it there was a scene where he said something about hope. And the interviewer is like, well, what is hope?
Right.
And he said, hope is a memory of the future.
That you haven't lived yet.
Hope is a memory
of the future.
Of something that hasn't happened yet.
Wow.
Okay, that's a deep thought.
That's a deep thought, but also I'm struggling. How do you remember something that hasn't happened yet?
Well, it basically means, it basically means that as humans in our temporal existence, we experience everything as a linear progression of time. You were born, we're sitting here right now in the present. The future hasn't happened yet, but we kind of have some vague sense of, you probably know the sun's going to rise tomorrow and so on and so forth. Hope being a memory of the future is pretty esoteric. I think it's a very spiritual idea. It is that it's already happened. It just hasn't happened yet.
Wow. So you do have a memory of the future, although it hasn't happened.
It's a belief.
That's a very strong way to put it. Yes.
It's a belief that it's already written.
Wow. Wow. Yeah.
It's already written. And in a way, it's already happened.
It just hasn't happened for you yet.
It just hasn't happened yet.
Wow.
It's the right now and not yet brought together.
Wow.
And if you believe this, I believe this. And if you really believe that it's already written, you can live a life. It looks like risk taking to other people,
but not to you.
No, because it's hope. Hope isn't, oh, if everything goes right. It's this too shall pass. And this will happen. And now we don't know exactly what that means.
Right.
But so anyway, that's a little philosophical.
I like that.
But hope is a memory of the future. And when I think about my career, although it's true for all parts of my life, I've been able to step into those things, whether it's hiring somebody when I don't have the money to pay them, or moving into a new job like being a VC when I've never been a VC before. It's not pride. It's not just optimism. It's a knowing that this is going to work out. Now, it doesn't always work out the way I think it's going to work out. But it will work, and it will, in many cases, it will be better than what I would have envisioned for myself. But plenty of suffering along the way.
Wow.
But all the good things in life look like that. You're married. When you married, when you got married, you went from this is your life being your thing to it becoming our thing. And when you invite children into the world, and the same thing is true when you grow an enterprise. And people who don't do that, people who white knuckle it. Now listen, if it's your company and you start it and you have a vision, I'm not telling you to compromise on that vision, but I am telling you to give up control. I am telling you to share. I am telling you to believe that 1 + 1 = 3. And that's a cute little thing to say that people kind of nod their head and go, oh yeah, but it's a true thing.
Wow.
If you got the right 2 ones, it's going to equal 3 or 10 or a million.
Yeah. That's awesome. We're going to conclude. Before we get to the rapid fire questions, this is my last question. You've talked a lot about storytelling and storytelling as a strategic edge in a way.
Yeah.
A lot of founders probably take some ages to maybe figure that out or find a way to package their stories. I think I heard you say not the best products or best, business one. Sometimes it's who can tell the best story, right?
Almost always.
Almost always.
Yeah.
Please tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there are storytelling is a foundational skill for a founder to either possess or develop. Hard stop. And if you're like, I'm not good at it, I'm not a good storyteller, well, then go do something else. Because you need to be able to tell stories when you sell to your customer. You need to be able to tell stories when you recruit, when you're asking somebody to leave their cushy job and come work with your high risk, almost certain to fail startup. You better be a good storyteller. If you do end up needing to raise money, you better be a good storyteller. And storytelling is something that is probably the most central cultural activity of humanity. That's what we do. We tell stories. And yeah, there are people that are better at it than others, but it is not, you're not born a good storyteller. That is a skill you develop, and you develop it by studying good storytellers. You develop, the way you get good at anything is practice. The way you get good at making money is practice making money. One of the things I ask entrepreneurs when I'm kind of interviewing them is I'm like, tell me the time you remember first making money on your own. And every great founder I've ever met has been practicing making money since they were in elementary school. Wow. Okay? Wow. And the same thing is true with storytelling. So you get good at storytelling by telling stories. But it is probably the central skill of successful founders, because, back to Steve Jobs, they talked about the Steve Jobs reality distortion field. What was that? What is that? That's storytelling. Right. He was able to get people to believe things that had not yet come to pass, to believe things that were counter to conventional wisdom. How do you do that? It's a narrative. And the beauty of storytelling is the structure for that exists and is well documented. I have a good friend who's written a book, by the way. If anyone's looking for a book recommendation. Oh, it was one of my questions down in the fire rapid question. I'm going to give one right now. Okay. It's called Story Brand. And it's by Donald Miller. Okay. And it is written explicitly for business owners to learn how to tell stories. Story Brand. Yeah, okay. Story Brand. Great book. But a story has an antagonist, a protagonist, a climax, and a denouement. So whether we're talking about your investor pitch deck, your investor pitch deck is a narrative arc. You need to introduce the antagonist. Here's the problem. Introduce the protagonist, your product or service. The climax, when your customer's problem is solved, and the denouement, what's in it for you if you come along with me on this journey, right? So yeah, 2 thumbs up on cultivating your storytelling capabilities. And the best way to get at it is practice, as you said. Is to study good storytellers. So it's hard to even know what a good story is if you don't study good stories. And there's no shortage of good stories in the world, right? Yeah. But you have to study that, and then you have to practice.
I'm thinking about two founders. And I'm guessing probably everyone has their own style of telling a story, and maybe what is the right way of storytelling probably differs, right? I would agree on the conventional terms. Steve Jobs will say phenomenal storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
Just the stage presence,
Yeah.
the words he used, the analogies, how he was able to picture something that.
But let me contrast that with Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos, kind of a low charisma,
right?
Nerdy. Lots changed in his life the last few years, but kind of, ill-fitting pleated slacks.
Mm-hmm.
And here's how he told stories in writing. So if you look at his shareholder letters, his investment memos, he was a master storyteller. So his strength wasn't on stage with a mic.
Right.
His strength was behind a computer screen. As a matter of fact, it's a very famous Amazon bit of history where if he wrote a memo or someone else on his leadership team, at the beginning of a meeting, the memo was handed out and everyone stopped for 5 minutes and just read the memo.
Right.
And that was how he shared his story.
I see. And I heard to this day, they don't use decks, they don't use slides. It's kind of someone preps memo, they come into the meeting.
It's a written narrative.
Yes. But the other founder I was actually thinking about who might not have that conventional good storytelling presence is Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But, he still have his way of getting, his story out.
Indeed.
Right.
Indeed.
Okay, so here's the rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Those are like a very short, are you a morning person or a night owl?
I am a morning person because I converted myself to being a morning person.
You were always not a morning person.
Correct. I was a night owl, and it did not work with the life I was trying to build. So I brute forced myself into becoming a morning person.
Wow. Convert morning person. Great. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
This question I ask people differently, but I'm going to ask you differently because I heard type 1 fun and type 2. I usually ask, what is your favorite fun?
Yeah.
But I heard you tell the story of there's 2 different types of fun. So if you don't mind, one, tell us what is type 1 and what is type 2, and what is your favorite type 1 and what is your favorite type
Type 1 fun is fun. That's fun while you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I think of it as junk food fun. It's going on a roller coaster ride. It's eating an entire package of double stuffed Oreos. It's like fun the minute you're doing it, but it's not the kind of thing that 10 years later you sit around with old friends and talk about. Type 2 fun is defined by the fact that it was definitely not fun while you were doing it.
Right.
It's only fun kind of in hindsight, right? And that's the type of fun that you do end up talking about. The 4 of us all go on a trip. We want to go on a hiking trip to Colorado. It thunders and storms the entire time. It's lightning. We don't even get to go on the hike. We're stuck in a tent. It's leaking. We can't get a fire started. I guarantee you that story is the story we are talking about with grins on our faces a decade later. So I try to optimize personally for type 2 fun.
Wow. Yeah. So what is your favorite type 2 activity then?
Well, I have all sorts. I mean, I guess an example would be I was in Arkansas last week with my family for spring break, and we have a cabin there, and it's in the middle of nowhere. And we have a vehicle, like a side-by-side, like kind of like a 4-wheeler, but with 6 seats, and it was broken. And I knew what was wrong. It required a new drive belt. I have never installed a drive belt in a transmission of a UTV, but I had called the repair company, and it was going to take too long and cost far too much money. Wow. So I said, I'm going to do this on my own. So I go pick the part up, and over the course of 2 days, end up rebuilding parts of this transmission, reinstalling the drive belt, and it was a miserable experience. I'm on my back. We have a wasp infestation, and I'm getting stung by wasps. I don't have the right tool. My knuckles are bleeding. I take the rear clutch assembly off and cannot get it back on. There's like 2 hours. I'm basically on the verge of tears at this point, Mohammed, right? Because now I can't even get it to the repair shop because it's in 200 pieces on the ground.
Right.
And thanks to my good buddy ChatGPT and YouTube, I kept muscling through it. It gets done. and my family's able to enjoy being able to drive around for the balance of the week. That made me I felt so happy. I felt so satisfied, so content. But the 6 or 7 hours I was underneath that vehicle on jack stands, getting stung by wasps, busting my knuckles, on the verge of tears, none of that felt fun at that moment.
Yeah.
So that's a recent example of type 2 fun.
Well, that's a great example. Yes, I love it. What is the best advice you have ever received?
It'd be to love God and love your neighbor as yourself. That's the best advice.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Awesome. What is the top of your travel bucket list that you haven't been to yet that you want to go?
That I haven't been to.
Yes.
I don't think it's very exciting. But
Arkansas?
No. I would very much like to spend some time in New Zealand.
Oh, nice. That's a good one, actually.
Have you been?
I haven't, but also it's one of the places I would like to
go.
There's
a lot about what they've got going on there that I find very, very interesting. And I'd like to spend time there.
Great. What is one book you would recommend? You told us already one.
No.
Yes.
My favorite book is a collection of essays by a farmer and poet named Wendell Berry. And I'm going to give you a copy of it before you leave.
Oh, nice.
But it's a very thin book, and it contains an essay called "It All Turns on Affection." It all turns on affection, and it's really about it's really kind of a philosophical musing on how we relate to each other and how we live in a world that we weren't designed for. We're not designed to live in a world where we have 10,000 LinkedIn connections. We're not designed to live in a world where we talk about $1 trillion deficits because the human brain doesn't know what $1 trillion is.
Right.
We're not designed for a world, when we hear about our neighbor's son dying in a car crash, you feel that viscerally. When you hear about 1,600 people dying in a bombing somewhere you've never been to, it's abstracted to a level that it doesn't mean anything. Wow. And this book is very much about reclaiming, I think, intimacy and connection with people and the land, the place we live. And it's informed so much of my thinking in business, family, and life.
That's beautiful. I'm looking forward to reading it. Yes. Thank you so much, Kristian.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it. Yes,
my pleasure.
Awesome.
This was a joy.
This was great. Thank you for saying yes.
I did. Yeah, of course.
Yes.